I am by nature a helper. I want to get involved. I want to help people accomplish whatever it is that they want to accomplish. And
Mhm.
I think sometimes the biggest part of that is helping them see that what they want to accomplish is actually possible for them.
Hello, and welcome to the When I Grow Up podcast, where we talk about what people wanted to do when they grew up, what they do now, and how they got there. And I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest, Jay. But before we dive in, let me just share a little more about him. Jay Hall is an author, podcaster, and educator with over 15 years of experience in higher education. He is the host and producer of the Okie Bookcast, a podcast dedicated to connecting curious readers with their next great read through interviews with authors and storytellers. Since its launch in 2021, Jay has released more than 150 episodes across several series, including a monthly book chat show co-hosted with his daughter, author, and screenwriter Hannah Herron. In 2026, Jay launched Read Local, a newsletter and brand designed to promote Oklahoma authors and booksellers. Jay is the author of God Help Me, I'm a Young Dad, 10 Essentials for Becoming the Dad Your Kids Need, and College Unpacked, a practical guide for choosing, preparing, and excelling in college. A frequent podcast guest and speaker, he talks about topics ranging from books and pop culture to podcasting, education, and fatherhood. Jay is currently serves as the Dean of Social Sciences at Oklahoma City Community College and lives in Newcastle, Oklahoma with his wife and their two dogs. Well, let's dive in. Well, Jay, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Kaylee, thanks for having me. I'm excited to hang out for a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conversation. I already know a little bit of your background just from our conversations before, but I always like to ask people the first question, which is, what is it that you wanted to be when you grew up? What was that childhood dream of yours?
So, childhood, I want to be an astronaut. I don't. That's probably the same thing that every 10-year-old boy
You
said at
know,
some point.
it's a theme. Yeah.
But I was a little bit young to remember the Apollo missions, but I was 10 years old when the first space shuttle took off and did its thing. And so I remember still sitting in my science class, watching the launch, and then just eating up everything I could about that. But it
Wow.
also didn't hurt that I grew up at the time when Star Wars took off and all these other big space things. So not that I believed I was going to be flying in Star Destroyers, but I thought there might be a
But
chance at some point.
it made space feel like a really cool place to visit. It's a very
Oh
simplified
yeah.
version, but
I
in the
mean,
kid's brain, such a cool place to visit.
yeah, all those
Yeah.
dots connected very quickly and very easily. And then, so I figured out pretty quickly that that was not going to be a path for me. By late junior high, I realized you've got to be able to do certain kinds of things to be an astronaut. But I was still always really interested in math and science. And so through junior high and into high school, it was still, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to build things. I'm going to figure stuff out. I love that solving problems kind of stuff. So it stayed in that math and science kind of world. It just came a little more earthbound.
Yeah. What was it about the math and science and everything that interested you?
I love solving problems. I love figuring things out. I liked the and this is very odd for people who know me now. I liked the structure that math and science provided, but I also liked being able to use those rules in a way that might be a little bit different, and engage that creative side of me as well. But there was something about just being able to look at a problem and figure out how to get from point A to point whatever. I was that weird kid that liked word problems. So I
Yeah.
really was kind of into just that process of how do we get to a right answer.
Yeah. Yeah, word problems are their own. Usually people who like math don't love word problems as much because there's a little bit more narrative to those, and that's interesting.
A little
Yeah.
more ambiguous, and so people, yeah, true
Mhm.
math people don't love that, but I guess I'm not a true math person, which is okay.
What is it that you do now?
I am, maybe in the direct opposite of all of that. I am the dean of social sciences at Oklahoma City Community College.
Okay. So talk to the listeners about what that entails.
So I oversee a division that has about 9,000 enrollments a semester.
Okay.
We work with political science, sociology, psychology, child development, and history. So we do lots of general education stuff for our students. And my role is really to create an environment where my faculty can be successful in impacting the lives of our students. So I am
Mm,
the middle management in some ways. It's my job to interpret what comes from upper administration and help our faculty navigate that, but also really do what I can, both in terms of financial resources, time resources, just being a sounding board sometimes to help them do what they need to do in the physical and digital classroom. We talk all the time about our job is to help our students take the next step in their academic journey. And my
mhm.
job is to make sure that my faculty are able to help those students take that step.
Yeah.
So, again, it's a lot of problem solving, not so much
Yeah.
with numbers and science anymore, but the social science side of that now.
Yeah, it's funny because actually, as you were talking, I was thinking, man, this kind of sounds like an upgraded version of a word problem for you
Every day, every
every
day.
single day. Wha- how is it that you landed where you are? How is it that you got to the current space of being dean of social sciences? Right?
That's it.
Yeah.
So it
Okay.
is a long and winding road, Kaylee.
Okay.
When I was in high school, so thought I was going to do math and science. My senior year of high school felt a call to professional ministry, and so very much shifted the direction of my existence for lots of years. So I went to college, got a degree in church music, which me and about four other people on the planet at that time had that degree. Went into professional ministry and worked in a couple of different churches, working with junior high and high school students, college students, and then moved out of that into a church plant situation where I was working with a lot of folks to get a church started in
Yeah.
Norman, Oklahoma. And through that process, really started studying and thinking about inequality and poverty and vulnerable populations and what happens to the people who fall through the cracks.
Mm,
And as I studied and really spent some time thinking about that, I got really, really interested in it. And then had a couple of experiences overseas that just solidified that this was the next, I don't know, point in my trajectory. This was the next step. So went back to grad school thinking that, and that was something after seminary, I said, I'd never go back to school. Never say never. Went back to
yeah.
grad school with the goal of getting a master's in sociology and planning to go into nonprofit work, and then found out that I love the academic environment. So there was
Okay.
a shift over the 10 years that I'd been out of school,
Mhm.
stayed, got my PhD, and then went to work for a small private Christian university in Oklahoma City and just kind of progressed through the ranks there. I
Mm,
One of the great things about working in a small college is that you stick around long enough and you demonstrate that you are pretty good at what you do and you can advance more quickly than you can at a large institution. And so became a
mm,
dean there and then moved on to the University of Oklahoma for a few years. And then this opportunity came up at OCCC. And all along, it was just really loving the thought of how to help people change and improve the trajectory of their lives. And it went from nonprofit work to education work. And now we're an open enrollment institution, which means that I deal with students who are very prepared for college and I deal with students who are very not prepared for college.
mhm.
And helping both of those populations figure out how to progress and take that next step. I believe that the work we do changes the trajectories of lives, of families, and of communities. And I can't imagine doing anything more fun. 10-year-old me would never in a million years have thought that I'd be sitting where I sit, but
Mm,
55-year-old me can't imagine sitting anywhere else.
mhm. It's really interesting, Jay, because you talk about how you have actually had career pivots in your life or complete career changes, if we want to just, that it's not pivoting from one to another necessarily.
No.
But there's a lot of times where people I talk with feel like they're not allowed to change what they do in life. And so it's really encouraging to hear that you had those experiences of, hey, this book is done. I'm going to step into the next book that I'm going to start writing. And I know that you have written books too. We can get into that piece. I did not mean for that metaphor to slip in.
No, it's well
Um,
played though. Great segue.
but but I think that that's really beautiful that you're able to share that story for people who maybe they're just done with a career path and they don't feel like they're allowed to change, but you're very much saying, "Hey, I changed and I really love what I do even now." And it sounds like you loved what you did before too.
Yeah, I did. And I think the way you said that, that feeling of being allowed to do it, I talk to a lot. I mean, we have a lot of adult students and have in all the places where I've worked. And part of the conversation with those students is feeling like they failed at something and now they're trying to pick up something else, and helping students or anybody reframe that's not a failure, that's just a transition point. Like now you know
Yeah.
what you don't want to do or that you don't do well, so let's figure out what that next step looks like. And I remember, especially when you're talking about something like professional ministry, you feel like there is this larger thing that has led you to it. And so navigating that path of this is still part of doing life in ministry, it's just not getting paid for the ministry side of it, but it's still the same kind of attempting to impact people's lives. And so I think sometimes that ability to help people reframe what
Yeah.
the transition really means, as opposed to, well, I screwed that up, so now I got to go find something else.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would love to hear from you, and you've already highlighted it in part, but I'd love to hear from you the parts of your work that you love the most, but also
Hmm.
the parts of your work that there are the heaviest lift. It's not that you don't love it, but that there are parts that you can acknowledge, "Yeah, not my favorite piece of the job right now," kind of thing.
My favorite part is just the fact that I get to work with great people, both my faculty, my colleagues, my administration, and my students. And I was telling one of my colleagues the other day, our job is to kind of be interrupted. So I don't have lots of periods of time where I
Mhm,
sit down and get things done, because my work is to be ready to engage students when they come to the office, or engage faculty when they come in with a question or a problem, or the most fun, a dream that they want to try to pull off in the classroom or try to pull off in some way, and how do we help resource making that happen. So I love that. I love long conversations in the hallway or in my office when people are both excited and then sometimes when they're scared or they're frustrated. I get students who come in, and students now struggle a little bit with just articulating what they need and having those conversations. And so I get to create an environment, because going to the dean's office is scary. Like it's kind of like the principal's office. You don't typically come to the dean to tell him great
right,
things, and so
yes.
creating an environment where students feel comfortable and letting them know that, I'm a resource for them, I'm on their side, although sometimes it's in difficult situations where we have to help them navigate that as well. The the other side of that,
The heavy lift side, got
because
it.
because I am in the middle, I do spend a lot of time in meetings, and
Yeah,
I am not a meeting person. I'm, you and probably everybody listening to this has sat in meetings that could have been emails,
mhm,
and some that probably shouldn't have happened at all. And I appreciate the necessity of many of these. I'll say it that way. But I also find myself at times just frustrated that it is pulling me away from the thing that I really want to be doing, which is working with my faculty, working with my students, helping
yeah.
kind of progress the mission of our division forward. So again, it's not bad most of the time. It's just
No.
one of those things that you kind of have to endure.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of times it's not that we look at those pieces of the job and say, "Oh, I just don't wanna do this anymore." It's
Right.
more so the not my favorite part, but I don't do my job for this part anyway, and that's absolutely okay.
Yeah, that's it. My favorite part of the day, honestly, I probably more than my faculty would want me to, just get up out of my office and go walk around and listen to what they're doing, not to listen in, but I loved being in the classroom and miss it. And so I just kind of
Mhm.
vicariously go hang out and listen to what's going on and watch what's happening in their classrooms, just to get to be a part of that again. And recognizing
Yeah.
I'm an administrator, and part of administrators means that you have to be in administration, which is meetings. So I
Mhm.
get it, but I always
Yeah.
would much rather be out there in the hallways doing my thing.
Well, I know you said that even just the love of academics came in as you were entering into school again for completely different reason. And that also can happen at times where we find the career path that we're looking for not because we were on this straight and narrow path, but because we happened upon it on the way
Right.
and
Right.
took the exit at the time that we needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I swore I was not going back. Uh, Seminary was a long 3.5 years, and part of that was I lived 100 miles away from the school, so I was
Mm,
making a ridiculous commute multiple times a week, nights, sometimes if I had an evening class or an afternoon class and class in the morning. So being away from my job, being away from my wife was not
yeah.
the most fun part of that. Getting back into an environment, and one of the things I recognized very quickly, the academic environment I was in, and I know this isn't all the time, was not competitive. And so having professors, and I think it helped that I was closer to the age of the professors than most of their students. So I think from the beginning, I was seen as more of a colleague just because we had a lot in common in terms of just life experience. And everybody remembered the 80s, and some of my student colleagues did not remember those times. So being invited to work on research and to really kind of get to see and do the work of an academic, even as a first year master's student, really helped me see the excitement that might be a part of that world.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's fair. I wonder if you had entered in at a younger age, if you may not have had that same sense of belonging, that same connection, and it may
It's
have
real
changed things.
possible.
But we don't know because that's not how it went,
Right.
and I know that
Right.
too. So I was also I know I kind of alluded to it, but you have written books, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about where that fits in the midst of all of the work that you've done.
Sure.
Just tell us about it.
Again, even as the math and science kid in junior high and high school, I loved creative side as well. I'm a musician. I was in all
Mhm.
the plays and all that kind of stuff. So I have always had this creative side as well, which I think is why the word problems didn't bother me as much because I didn't mind words in math things. So I've always wanted to write. I have a podcast where I talk with authors and have been doing that for years. And through the process of that, became more and more convinced that I could do what they do. And then my son, now 3.5 years ago, came and told us that he and his wife were going to have their first child. And out of that, I thought, man, there's some things I really hope he knows about being a dad, and decided to write those down because I also knew lots of other young men who were becoming fathers or who had just become fathers. And so that led to my first book, which is called God Help Me, I'm a Young Dad. And it's just I hope it's wisdom. Well, I know some of it's wisdom because it comes from a faith perspective and
Yeah.
from a biblical worldview, but some of it was just stories and, let's think about the things that dads should have, need to have in
Mhm.
order to then help their kids become who they need to be. And so it's talking about things like gratitude and service and love and joy and
Yeah.
things that we don't often spend a lot of time thinking about. But I realized because of my time interacting with authors that this was a thing I could do because I got permission, like which was allowed to
Yeah.
write a shorter book. It's only 100 something pages, and kind of a process for creating that. After doing that, so something happens when you write one book is that you get the bug and actually believe that you can do more of it. So a couple years later, as I was interacting with students, I really became convinced and aware that students come to college and struggle not because they're not smart or not prepared, but because college is a really convoluted, complicated system. The process of
Mhm.
getting to it, getting in, figuring out how to navigate all of the things you have to navigate and getting out.
Mhm.
And so, especially at an open enrollment institution where we have lots of first gen students who don't have
Yeah.
parents or other systems to help them navigate this thing.
Mhm.
So I spent, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks just writing down everything I thought would be useful to know, both from the perspective of a dean, but also a dad who had sent 4 kids to college and the things that we kind of helped them navigate. And that became College Unpacked, which is my second book that came out. just about a year ago,
Wow.
and it is it's called a practical guide to everything related to college, from figuring out where do you want to go, so college visits and all that kind of stuff, through
Mhm.
the application process. What does all this stuff mean? And then thinking really through that first year, how to have a great first week in class, what happens when things go wrong. And there's even a chapter for parents about kind of the care and feeding of a college student because they're different.
Yeah.
You're used to your child as a high school student, a teenager, and they go to college. And even if they live at your house, things begin to change. And so helping
Mhm.
parents navigate that process as well. And the goal of that book really is to help students and their families step on campus with confidence. It doesn't
Mhm.
provide all the answers because every place is different, but it does provide, this is who you go ask. This is what a
Mhm.
bursar does. This is what your advisor can do for you. This is what a chair is. And to help students think about, okay, I have this problem or I have this challenge. How can
Mhm.
I get it resolved? And giving them the confidence to do that. It's been a ton of fun both to interact with students and their families, had the chance to speak a little bit around the state in different places, talking to students about getting ready for what's next, and just hearing the positive things that have come now that we have a group of students who have become freshmen, whose
Yeah.
families use the book and have had some success stories because they knew where to go and knew what to do.
Hmm. You know, it's interesting, Jay, because as you tell the different parts of what you do, and even the podcast, I'm telling a little bit of what you've told me, but even the podcast is to support local authors in
Mhm.
Oklahoma,
Yeah,
and more specifically your area of Oklahoma, right?
but
Um,
it's the whole state.
the whole state, okay.
Yeah.
But what I hear woven through every single space, it reminds me of how why you entered college because of the nonprofit, that you see needs in communities and you respond to the need. So you see needs in young dads and you respond to the need. You see needs in students, you respond to it. And that is if you want to talk like core driving force, that sounds like that's one of yours.
I think you're absolutely right. As I've thought about it, I am by nature a helper. I want to get involved. I want to help people accomplish whatever it is that they want to accomplish. And I think sometimes the biggest part of that is helping them see that what they want to accomplish is actually possible for them. So whether
Yeah.
that's creating a platform for them to talk about their stuff through the podcast, or creating these things like my books that kind of help in a larger way, give them tools to use as they're navigating whatever their process, or in my job, helping faculty chase their wild ideas and helping students do things that they don't think is possible. I got to tell you, Kaylee, the graduation day is the very best day because I watch these students go across the stage. And man, I'm not a terribly emotional person, but when I see a mom go across the stage and hear her teenage children cheering for her in the background, it gets a little dusty in
Gosh.
that auditorium, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you
Mhm.
you just see we get to see the end result, or at least the end of that step, knowing that whatever that step has been, the next one will be better because of it. So yeah, I just love watching people become what they can become.
Yeah, and you create room for that. You give them tools where you have
That's
tools to
always the
pass
goal.
on.
Yeah,
Mhm. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for, coming on the show and sharing your story with everyone. I
absolutely.
think every time I have conversations with people, none of them are the same, obviously, but I
Right.
also find that everybody's story has kind of these different takeaways, and to me, the takeaway that I gain from talking with you is number 1, you have permission to do the things that you've been thinking of. Like we want to blanket it a little bit, but
Absolutely.
like you have the permission to write the book or to go back to school as a non-traditional college student or as a first generational college student. You have permission to pursue a job that maybe doesn't even exist yet. And I know you didn't say that
Right.
one, but like just that idea of you're not stopped by the rules or the structure that may have been put in place, but instead there are opportunities out there and there are people out there wanting to help and support those opportunities for people. And you're one example of.
I think that's it. I think my story is thinking of the next thing and then giving it a shot. And,
Mhm.
if that were the one thing that I could impart to whomever is listening to this, you can just go try.
Yeah.
It's been my story so far.
Yeah. Well, is there any other ways that people can be following you or following your podcast and just be connecting with you in different ways?
Sure. I've made it really easy. It is Okie Bookcast, which is the name of the podcast
Mhm.
across all the platforms. It was odd enough that it existed everywhere. So
Mhm.
OKIEBOOKCAST. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and all those places. So if you're interested in books and authors, or you're an author yourself, you just want to really be encouraged, it's a great place to do that. My books can be found on my writing website, which is jhallwriter.com. And that's just the letter J, not Jay. And from there, you can find all things related to God Help Me, I'm a Young Dad and College Unpacked and other things that I'm working on and kind of where I'm hanging out. And I love talking with folks about whatever books or
Mhm.
the college journey or nerdy stuff, whatever you
Or
come up
Star
with. I'm
Wars.
always that, or listen, I'll start there. But any opportunity to interact with folks and engage, I love. So come find me and let's say hey.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as of this recording, that is one of the first times that we've had the chance to talk with someone who completely changed career paths. And yet, even though that's the case, you can hear how Jay's story is connected through the common need or drive to help people by solving problems. I always love hearing those underlying pieces because we all have them. We all have underlying drives for ourselves, that why piece that drives us toward what we really want to do in life. And if you ever feel like you need to change career paths or start something new, this is your permission slip. It's okay for you to change or to start or to end something that has just been on your mind. I hope today's episode was helpful for you. And if it was, please leave a like or a comment and subscribe so that you can catch future episodes. And if there is anything that you want to learn about, man, I'm starting to think I need to talk to an astronaut. I don't know about you, but if you want me to try to find someone out there willing to talk about their career that they love in a specific career field, leave a comment below so I know what to look for. And until next time, take care.